I got a sound effects machine, so.
Some very strange sounds.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all part of the shtick.
Yeah.
Okay.
You ready? Sleep time's over. Kevin the Catalyst, DJ Zach Morris. Wait, what are we on?
We are on season 8.
Episode 10.
Episode 10, yes.
Yeah, episode 10.
Come very far.
Wow. Yeah, look how far we've come.
And we've come so far.
Yeah.
Well, the episode, in case we haven't reminded everyone, the gift of aloha. ... Poke. There you have it. And to show how far we've come,
So far.
our guest this week, in the 80s, a phenomenal legend, a phenomenal Hawaii legend.
Yeah, definitely.
Legendary hit songs. Nothing's gonna change my love for you. She ain't worth it. Legendary. It's only fitting. And now today, he is a doctor, president, St. Louis
Crazy.
High School. None other than Dr. Glenn Medeiros.
Hey.
Here he is. Welcome, sir.
Thanks for
Welcome.
having me.
Here we
Yes,
go.
welcome to the show.
When you say legendary, I feel old, but that's okay.
You're always never old in our hearts, I tell you.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us, man. I mean, Kevin, as I told you, he performs at Hasser.
Right.
And is this like something that you do like once a year or whenever you can because you're a busy guy, or how does that?
You know, it's funny, but it's been 30 years since the release of Nothing's Gonna Change My Love for You, and so people have been asking to, come back and perform a little bit.
Okay.
And for the last 20 years or so, I've been really focused on the teaching side of it, the educational side. So I've been coming back here and there. At Hazard's, I perform once a month on the first Saturday of each month. Sometimes I can't make it because of some of the responsibilities I have at St. Louis School, but I've always wanted to, I got to this point in my life, I'm approaching 50 and I'm 48 years old, and I'm at a point in my life where I want to kind of check off all the things that I've always wanted to do. And one of the things that I've always wanted to do was to do a gig for 3 hours just playing the piano and singing. And so I played the piano, played guitar a little bit, but I never got to a point where I could really do 3 hours worth of music.
Yeah.
And so one day I just set myself down, and for several weeks I just worked on it, and so now I get to live out that dream of being able to do that.
How do you know the people at Hasser? Or?
So the owner at Hazard is a good friend of mine. Was actually introduced to me by Frank Danima when I performed with him in Waikiki.
Oh, right.
Hey.
And they used to have a place called, her name is Terry Kakazu, and she used to own a restaurant called Paul and Terry's in Chinatown.
Oh.
And Frank Danima and I, after our shows we did together, we'd go down to Paul and Terry's, play darts, and basically sing karaoke at her place. So we grew to have a relationship with her. And she's always been just a really good person. And so when she asked me to perform, I said, hey, maybe this is my opportunity to be able to kind of check off one of those things that I want to do.
Wow.
So in that 3 hours, what's the songs you cover?
Well, it's, if you don't like love songs from the 80s, not a good one to go. Don't show. Because that's basically what I do. Honestly, she just said, Glenn, sing whatever you want to sing. And for me, that is the 80s love songs, which I'm listening to. So.
Do you ever get opportunities to do like reality show stuff? Because you're so famous on a global scale at one point. They're bringing back all these people from the past, and they're like, hey, throw you in a house with this person, the Survivor thing.
Right.
Do you speak on any kind of things you ever got?
I've been offered quite a few of those in Europe, where my career in the United States was somewhat successful. I did have the #1 song with Bobby Brown, and did have the top 10 hit with Nothing Will Change My Love for You in the United States, but the real success for me came in Europe. So I don't really get those questions asked in the United States, but for the European shows, I do get asked quite a bit. And they started the whole kind of reality TV long before we picked it up in the United States. So I saw some of it in the 80s happening there. But
in the 80s?
In the 80s, they were starting to kind of experiment with that in England and other places. So, but I just, it involved me going away for weeks, and I was usually at school or in college, and then most of the time they're out there to really kind of, people put themselves out there to basically sell records.
Right.
And for me, I don't have a record out. And the other thing is, they know, as an artist that you're getting yourself into a position where you're gonna kind of embarrass yourself. But people are willing to do that to sell records, and that's okay. But for me, that's not something I want to do at this stage of my career.
You talked about Europe, and you've had like a #1 hit that was in France.
Yeah, so Nothing's Gonna Change My Love for You was #1 there.
Yeah, and there was something else.
And then there's another song called Love Always Finds a Reason, and in French, a little different title, Un Roman d'Amitié, which was #1 there for some time with a French singer who was very popular there and still is today as an actress and as a singer.
Who's that singer?
Her name is Elsa, and she was very popular, and I think she's married now. She's to a soccer player in Europe.
Of course.
Yes.
So what was the thing that made you more popular in Europe as opposed to America? What did you see as the appeal there?
Well, so when we talk about Europe, it's similar to talking about the States and the United States. You know, in the United States, we have in the South you have more country music, and you know in the Northeast you might have more hip hop or whatever it might be. In Europe, it's very similar. So there's some countries that it did very well in, and others not so well. Countries like Germany, not so well. It sold a few records. Italy, not so well. But it really broke out in Spain, France, Belgium, Norway, Sweden, Holland, those countries. And I think those countries were more open to the kind of romantic music.
So when you say break out, was it to a point where you would go there and it'd be like fans?
Yeah. So it would be basically, I would say like my popularity in the United States was more like maybe a guy that had one hit and then you didn't hear from him again. Right. My popularity in France or in Spain was similar to maybe, what's his name?
Hasselhoff?
No, he was
first thing that came to my mind.
He was really huge in Germany.
Germany's album, yes.
Yeah, so not so much like Hasselhoff because he had his television career and that really boosted him. But maybe Justin Bieber, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if I were walking the street, I would need security guards because they'll just start attacking and things like that.
Right.
And then a couple times I took a chance and said, I don't need security guards. So I started walking out. And there were a couple of times when the police had to come and things like that. So it was a real scenario, but it was good. I mean, it was good for me to experience that, to see what it was like, and then I come back home to Hawaii where more people knew me in Hawaii than the rest of the United States. But it was never to that point in Hawaii.
Okay, so a local boy from Kauai.
Exactly.
All the way in Europe. Yeah. By yourself?
With
or
police?
Parents? Or anybody?
You have chaperone or something?
So my parents came with me. My father came with me my first couple of trips. But when I hit about 18, that's when I just...
I'm good.
So I was on my own.
So how did you not end up down that road of
Yeah.
down to the dumps?
Well, we'll talk about Bobby Brown later.
All that stuff. How'd you get to the level head to be like, no, I'm going to go back to school?
Yeah.
I mean, now you're a doctor.
Yeah.
So what happened in between career of singing, Hawaiian Justin Bieber, till now you're a doctor, in between that stint?
Well, a couple things. One, I think, was my parents. My parents were, came from a small town in Kauai. Right. So that's one thing. Life was simple. A church and the beach and sports. And life was simple. I wasn't exposed to a whole lot, but my mother was one that always said, do not look at the people that have taken drugs and look at their lives and what has happened to them, and you want to avoid that. So although I was around a lot of it, I never really never partook in it because I was always afraid that I might. I'm a person that always I don't want to be in a situation where I don't have kind of control over myself, and in some ways being 16 and being around people that were doing drugs, and I got to see them, and you see very nice people, but when they were on drugs, they were totally different. Right. Just completely like another.
Was it 16 when you had your hit? And you did stuff with Bobby Brown and stuff?
Bobby was actually when I was 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Brown Bags was 16 or 15? When were you?
Brown Bags was 16.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you did and what prompted you to use that song, the George Benson?
Yeah. Well, I'm a huge George Benson fan. I had all his records, and I loved his stuff. And so when I heard the song, I just fell in love with it. I thought, my God, this song is incredible. Yeah. And so I said, I want to use it for the contest. Used it for the contest. And when it was done, program director at I-94, his name was Jay Stone, he had taken a real liking to what I'd done on stage, and said, "Hey, Glenn," and he was essentially producing the record. That because the winner of the contest got to go to the recording studio and record a song and
Right.
And so he was there, and he said, "Hey, Glenn, you have to use this song." And I said, "No, I prefer to do an original as much as I like the song." And he said, "No, this song never really broke big. It got out there, but a lot of people associate George Benson as a with jazz,
Right.
jazz.
Definitely.
So he never really got the push that the song deserved, and so I said, okay, reluctantly I did it, and as opposed to I'm sure he spent about $100,000 recording, $50,000 to $100,000 recording his version of it, which I like much better. We spent about $500 on my version here in Hawaii.
There you go, 4-track.
And it was very simple. Got in, people played live, got it done, and then we added a few things in New York once the song started hitting. But basically, it was done on a very cheap budget. And the artists that actually performed on George Benson's record, the keyboardist Michael Buchanan, Robbie Buchanan, some of the other players, these guys are, we call them, they're major studio players. I mean, they're paid, we call it triple time. So if you pay an artist $300 an hour to come and play the guitar, they were getting paid in the 80s, $900 an hour. And so I was able to eventually be able to work with these guys, but George would only, because he was such a great musician, only worked with the best musicians.
And did you contact George personally, or you had an agent or manager?
To be honest with you, I've never spoken to him in my life. I've never met him. Yeah, and there have been attempts for us to come together. I know he was in concert in Hawaii just about a year ago, and he had really nice things to say. He mentioned that I re-recorded his song, and that he was very happy about that, and got the song out there again. So I think it's one of my dreams, actually, to be able to meet him. I have so much.
Amazing that you have.
What's funny with that? I think I can make that happen.
Oh, great! No, I've always wanted to meet him. And I've always said my message has been consistent from the beginning that I love his version much better than mine, and I still sometimes just for fun I'll listen to his version because I like it so much.
Right.
I rarely ever listen to my own music. It's one of those things. I don't know if some people. I don't like to see myself on television or hear myself. I don't know what it is about it.
Right. You're always gonna be a harshest critic.
Yeah.
No, my really good friend, that's his uncle.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Oh
and he's supposed to come here because he knew I was a fan, but instead I gave my record to my friend. He had him sign it. So he was here in Hawaii
So there's a possible connection.
year or two ago. But he told me next time he comes back, he's gonna come to the shop. And I told him, hey, would you play like a lick on your guitar? And I sample it on my beat thing. He's like, yeah, I'll do that. I was like, what? I talked to him on the phone and everything. That's why it's so funny. I was like, wait, so now I gotta call you. Like, Glenn, he's here.
Big meeting.
Right there. You zip down the hill, come here. Boom, make it happen.
Wow.
Viral. Go viral.
I would love to.
That would actually happen.
Would have thought, yeah.
Well, speaking of it being it was a cover song, and it's a thing that's kind of prevalent in local music, maybe after the 90s, 2000s, where a lot of covers are done. Like local music's always covering songs.
Yeah.
What's your take on that as a thing that was always it's always like a consistent, local people always doing covers?
Yeah.
What's your take on that, rather than an original song?
That's a really good question, and something I have to think about. I do know that in the places that I've traveled, and I've been lucky enough to travel to about 40 countries, the places that I've traveled, that is a phenomenon that happens everywhere. And I think part of it is the local people feel that they can add their flavor to the song in a way that's going to be so that the people will be able to connect with.
More relatable.
And yeah, so I think that's part of it. I also think that there's a really interesting history when it comes to writing music in the music industry. At one time, first I'll start by saying this: if you want to make music in the music industry, you have to write. Period. You have to write. You have to write music, and the reason is because if you look at the artists that have stood the test of time and continue to get record deals, they're the ones that write, because the recording company, the label, will see them as having more value. Because if you don't write your own music, then you are dependent on other writers. you can come and go because those writers come and go. The style of music comes and goes. So you want to write music. Number two, when people started writing music, they began in these little writing factories. You had groups of people that wrote for everybody. So if you look in the 50s and 60s, the same writers for almost all of the songs. These people would come together, they'd write music, and because writing takes time. It's not something that you can just say, hey, I'm just going to do it on the side here. It really takes time. And when you work with other groups of people, you can develop your writing to a point where it gets really strong. And so you have a lot of these great writers who'd come together and work together and just write music for the record labels. And of course, for the record labels, that was advantageous because they would be able to own the publishing and then just pay these guys a salary.
Yeah.
But the neat part about writing is that writers were the first to actually come together and unionize and be able to get the rights that they wanted, that they deserved. And so writers, every record that's sold, they will make a piece of the profit.
Right.
Whereas singers don't have those same rights because they never came together to say, hey, I shouldn't say never. In the last 10 years or so, there have been companies that have come together that have gone to Congress and said, hey, performers have the right to also be paid per record. So now, let me explain this because not a lot of people know this, but if you, as a singer, I sold over 7 million records, but I made very little money as a singer. And the reason is because I sold a lot of singles, not necessarily albums. And if you sell albums, most people, what they'll do is they'll fill up the album with songs that they've written so that they can make money from it.
Right.
The other thing is that record companies have the right to say, they can say, look, 99.9% of records that are out there never make their money back, which is true. So if they invest, let's say $500,000 to create your album, then they can say to singers, because there are no laws to really protect them, you can tell a singer, hey, you're not going to make your percentage that you get per song to perform on it until everything is recouped. So when singers go out on tour, it costs money. You got to pay for the flights, they have to pay for the band to go out there, they have to pay for everything, and you don't make your money back until all of that is recouped. Every music video is $100,000. My records are running about $500 to $1 million to produce. At the very least, we maybe spent a couple $100,000 on a record, but it still all adds up. And you don't start making money until that is paid off. Now, if I had written when Nothing's Gonna Change My Love For You was released, and at that time it was singles, literally singles when I started singing. All you had to do, one of the tricks of the trade was to just write anything. You go and walk into a room, just write a song. It could be about anything. It could be about the sunset, whatever you want to do. It could be about this microphone. Write a song about I love microphones. And put it on the record, on the B-side, and if it sells 1 million, you sold 1 million records.
Well, that's your...
Wait, even on the B-side?
Even on the B-side.
Wow.
So when I first started singing, I always wondered why people were scrambling to get their songs on the B-side of my record. I couldn't understand.
Oh, gotcha.
And then later I learned. But it really is in the writing. That's where the money is. And then on top of the writing, the beautiful part about the writing is that when it gets on a movie, anything visual on television, then the amount that you get back just triples and quadruples. So people like Paul McCartney, I think I read an article once, and I don't know if it's true, that he makes like $1,000 a minute. Because all of his music is being played and recorded by other people, movies and others. So he's at a point in his life where he can just collect checks for the rest of his life, which is where Bruno Mars is probably. Right. He's one of the most successful artists in the world, and I think one of the best writers out there. And he just, all he needs to do for the rest of his life, if he wanted to stop right now, he could stop. And probably, my guess would be he could probably collect easily a couple $1 million a year. Just go to the mailbox, take out the check, and just enjoy the rest of his life.
That's it.
Yeah.
So did you write for it? I mean, because you're a singer-songwriter, right?
Yes.
And so did you, after the kind of singing slowed down, did you want to take on the writing process, the writing?
What's
path?
interesting, the good part is now I'm starting to actually make money as a singer because there have been there are companies out there, and I can't think of the most famous one right now, but there are companies that are going out there and fighting for the performers' rights, and so I'm getting some money from that now coming in, and it's nice to get that check. It comes in about four times a year, and but as far as writing is concerned, I tried writing when I was 16. I had my keyboard and my guitar, and everything that I wrote sounded like something else. And which is what happens when you're a teenager. And it wasn't until I purchased a home when I was about 17 on Kauai. I bought a house.
How about that?
Yeah, and I lived on my own while I was going to high school. It was pretty
You got a house?
Yeah, no, I sold it
Okay.
when I got a house here on Oahu. But anyway, I lived in there, and it wasn't until I actually lived alone that I could start writing music because I guess I'm the type of writer that I cannot have any distractions.
Okay,
I have to be completely alone, and I have to be in a constant state of reflection.
Yeah.
And once I do that, then that helped. And then the other thing that helped is when I was right about that age, I went to New York and I needed to see somebody else write a song. Like for me, I needed to see somebody else do it first.
Right.
And then I saw about 3 or 4 others do it, and there was a certain technique to it, and everybody does it differently. Some people write words first, then music, music then words, or they write maybe just a few words and they put music to it. And it depends. For me in particular, I needed to be alone, and then I take that feeling that I was having, and then turn it into a title, and then put music to the title, and then once I did that, everything was just like pieced together. And so the title gave me that overall feeling and direction of where I wanted the song to go. And then from that point, then at that point, I mean, I don't write a lot. I mean, I've written over 300 somewhat songs, but there are a lot of artists out there that have written thousands. So, but much of in the last 20 years or so, I've been focusing more on school and education. But I love writing them.
Is there any local artists out there you feel like you heard them on the radio? You're like, hey, if I could work with that guy or that girl or that band, and I have this song. I bet you if I get them to do this song, it'll be a hit.
You know what? I had that dream come true actually because in 1999 and 2000, I was asked to be the music director for Baywatch Hawaii when they